Welcome everyone to Here Be Dragons live episode with Demeternoth and TheKapFantastic, and we're going to be discussing lore and all sorts of weird speculation today, and I hope you'll find it incredibly silly and incredibly wrong, because we're going to say things that are not true. So, we've all seen the intro cinematics, so that we know where roughly the story's taken us initially.
Yes.
But I want to go back several months. I want to know what your predictions were pre-launch, like before we knew any of this information.
Well, I can jump straight in and tell you the one thing that I said when asked many months ago, and it kind of has come to fruition, was that if it's dragons, because obviously there's a lot of rumor about the whole kind of Dragon Isles thing, and I wasn't completely convinced, but I sort of basically said at that time, if it's dragons, 4 zones, 4 dragon aspects, they've all lost their power, we're going to go around the zones, help them get their power back, there'll be a big baddie, that's why we need their power. So the premise, I think, was pretty obvious from a way back. Beyond that, I didn't really. I mean, the primalists are kind of new, so I didn't really sort of predict any of that. But it's a big bad.
See, that's kind of where I deviated initially, because I thought, oh, primalists, oh, the world is reawakening after 10,000 years and stuff, and I thought, oh, the elementals are coming back, Son of Ragnaros or something, or something to replace all the elementals we killed in Cataclysm. And I was hoping for some sort of like the primalists were going to bring back the elemental lords in some form or other, and I was really sort of thought that was the way we were going to go. And then the cinematics came and it was all old gods and dragons. I was like, maybe not then, maybe not.
I actually didn't. I thought Galacrond was going to make an appearance, and I expected to see something around that. And the only bit we've had of that is in the Legacies cinematic, which is fine. I didn't really think any more about it. I was just really excited to see Dragon Mummy again, because she's long been one of my favorite characters in WoW. And I think from the first moment I saw her at the top of Wormrest Temple, and then we did the Wrathgate, I speak about a lot as one of my favorite events ever, all time. And that, she's quite heavily involved in that. So from there, I've always been an Alexstrasza fan. So the fact that I was going to get to spend more time with her, didn't really think about where that might be. Now that we've seen the cinematics, I've got a few things in the back of my mind, but what I've thought about all the way through is, and this hinges on something that's been talked about before in the WoW lore community. Alexstrasza is the only Dragonflight aspect to not have been corrupted. And I have a real fear, like a very real fear, that at the end of this expansion, she's going to be the corrupted baddie.
Yeah.
And that might. I'm going to be completely overdramatic here and say that might make me stop playing World of Warcraft forever, because I would feel so utterly betrayed if they did that to her. I don't know if I could get over that.
Well, she was held captive for a long time, though, wasn't she, by the Dragon Maw? So yeah. she's had some drama,
had some darkness and drama. Yeah. Yes.
But she always. There was never any resolution to that. She kind of like, oh, I forgive them now. Like, you were basically enslaved for X number of years, and you're just like, yeah, it's fine.
Enslaved and the R word repeatedly to breed dragon eggs.
Yeah, I was trying to dodge that, but yeah.
And unfortunately, I think it has to be mentioned because it is such a graphic part of her story that is talked about in the book. And it's, if she turns bad, well, I may never forgive the writers for that.
There is an old god whisper. I know people are going to say, "Oh God, oh the whispers." Oh,
no, here we're already here. Thought we might be about 20 minutes in before we got to whispering. Okay, let's go.
But there's an old god whisper, and I think it's actually from Yogg-Saron or Yashraj. I'm going to butcher lots of pronunciations, so get used to it. And it does say, it was a whisper to Niltharion that says, Alexstrasza wants domination overall. And it does kind of think if she's never been corrupted and she's due a corruption, I don't know.
No, don't say that. She's not.
I mean, she's the prime target, though, right? You know,
She's
if you
the
were,
de facto
this
leader
is a
of the
movie.
dragons.
Mm-hmm. You're
Yeah,
going
I
to go for
know.
Alexstrasza, the queen.
I know. But then, so if we move into like what we've seen, so if we move into a bit of what we've seen, that cutscene between Kalagos and Khadgar, where obviously there's the four aspects, and Stony Tony stood at the top of wherever in Valdrakken, I think it is. Yeah. And they name drop Iridicron, and everybody's like, well, who the hell is that? We haven't heard that name before. This is brand new. And it's like, well, they're obviously an elemental because they're mentioned in conjunction with Razageth. Razageth is referred to as the youngest of the elemental dragons. So then I'm like, oh, well, maybe Iridicron is like the super big bad mommy or daddy of the elementals. And I'm okay with that. If that's the end boss and that's who we have to take down and put away, I am totally on board for that. That's fine. But if they go down the old god route of let's corrupt another aspect, yeah. And you know, we haven't even touched on Murazond because there's all of that going on as well.
Yeah, I feel that Murazond is the larger theme, which is because they've said that they want to move toward a multi-year arc.
Yeah.
And I feel like the conclusion of Dragonflight could be the start or the trigger of what makes it Murazond. So that becomes 11.0's starting point. So we get to wherever the end of here is. We defeat the big baddie, whoever that is. But in the conclusion of that, something happens that fractures his mind, converts him into Murazond, and then Murazond
whatever that trigger is, that because we know it's going to happen. We know that's what happens to him. He knows that's what happens, and we just don't know what the trigger is. So yeah, you could be absolutely bang on the money there. And the idea that thread then takes us in, and then we go through that story. I mean, the Infinite Dragonflight's in the Alderman dungeon and the revamped dungeon, so you know they are drip feeding that in. I
think to jump in, I think what I love at the moment is there are these multiple storylines and story arcs, and they all kind of could go somewhere. So in my head, we've got kind of like three core stories. We've got this journey of Nozdormu becoming Murazond, which is wrapped up in the Infinite Dragonflight, and we know their goal is for Murazond to become the one true aspect. That's their kind of outcome. Then we've got the Primalists with
Eric.
and
Razamadgadeth. But so we know they're kind of like almost a juxtaposition to the aspects. So we know that the aspects accepted the power of the Titans, drank the Kool-Aid, and still drink the Kool-Aid because that's what we've got on the Dragon Isles. And the other lot didn't. So the Primalists were the kind of the four dragons that went, well, I know I'm good, thanks. I don't want your magical powers. I don't think you're cool. There's something fishy going on here. The Titans aren't good. So there's a juxtaposition there between those two. I suspect Iridicon is kind of Alexstrasza's counterpart, if you like. So I can see there being kind of like a dragon head-to-head, like a Primalists and Aspects head-to-head. Then you've got the story of the Titans' control of the Aspects as well, and how the water of the Dragon Isles is kind of convincing them that the Titans are all good. And then behind all of that, you do have the influence of the old gods, and that plays out in a couple of ways, because we know that the old gods at multiple points in Warcraft history have used time or visions of the future, visions of the past, or hidden reality in time, in the timelines, from certain characters. So we know that Deathwing was able to hide what really happened to him in the timelines from Nozdormu. We know that Elisande in Nighthold by the Nightwell wasn't able to see the only version of time where we won, and that was what she based her whole plan on. Letting the Legion in was the only way she could get her people to survive. She hadn't seen that timeline, so again, the old gods hiding that somehow. And there's, I think, other aspects of time where things just kind of aren't visible to people, or people are kind of convinced that something's going to happen and it doesn't. Particularly related to N'Zoth. So we've got this kind of potential old god play into timelines and how they work and how visible they are. I mean, again, sort of, I think Garrosh had been given visions of the future where he was like, oh yeah, you're like the big bad boss. Again, old god. So it's all kind of happening in the behind the scenes. And I even wonder whether it'd be this expansion that plays out. I can see several longer form stories there that I just don't think are going to resolve through a simple raid or dungeon.
I have a question on the back of that. If we're gonna if we are because the old gods are embedded in Azeroth, right? Garrosh was the heart of Yasaj that he nicked, and that all of that nonsense that went on. Garrosh did a hell of a lot wrong. I'll tackle anybody on that. But this whole thing of we still have a sword stuck in our planet. Do we think something along the lines of then ridding the world, finding a way to rid Azeroth, which let's assume that she is a she, first of all, and an unborn titan and the world's most powerful titan and all the rest of it. Are we building up then to a way that using the dragons and their aspect power from the titans, we are able to cleanse Azeroth of the infestation and of the sword? Is that possible? Is that something that can happen?
I mean, that first entails the return of the Titans,
Yep.
because I
Could
correct
they
me if I'm
come
wrong.
back?
They just left after Legion. They didn't.
Yeah. Could they come back though if they see their pets in the dragon aspects under threat?
Well, the question is, why didn't they remove it the first time? Like,
Mm.
they saw it go in, and then they're like, okay, we'll just, it's fine.
I
Well,
suspect they weren't able to heal Azeroth, and if that sword comes out, it's going to be like the Well of Eternity all over again. So if that sword comes out, it's like the Well of Eternity all over again. All the Azerite and shit bubbling up, and everybody going crazy all around Silithus because they've suddenly got this magic leaking out everywhere, and it's a major wound to this sleeping titan, where we've already had several wounds. Like quite a lot inflicted, largely by the old gods, which are parasitic at best. So I just wonder if there's something around like the Titans coming back to rip out the old gods once and for all, and that I mean, this is like way down the future, and I am completely tinfoil hatting this. But is there something around that where that's how the old gods are finally pulled out of Azeroth, and in awakening her, the Void Lords finally step in? Because we know that the old gods are just servants of the Void Lords. They're not like actually that powerful in the grand scheme of things. I don't know.
we didn't see Sargeras die either. Just putting that out there.
No.
Pantheon just whisked him off with Illidan.
I think it's very well. Whether this is just coincidental or whether Blizzard thought this out long term, probably didn't. But the fact that there's a giant sword that has potentially wounded Azeroth, and it's right next to where an old god was, and old gods apparently are rooted deep in the earth. What's to say that that wound has not already been infected?
Did he not? Maybe he missed. Maybe he was aiming for Anchorage and he missed.
I think he was aiming for Azeroth, to be honest, and I think he was so dead bent on killing Azeroth because Azeroth is corrupted by the old gods.
I've had the tinfoil hat theory that Azeroth is already corrupted.
Yep, I'm on board.
He was trying to kill Azeroth.
It wouldn't surprise me.
And everything that's happened is to try and kill Azeroth. And we're trying to defend Azeroth because we live on it, not because we know anything about being inside. The being inside is probably the worst thing in the world, but where else do you go? Are we all going to go over to Draenor? Because honestly, that feels worse. I don't want to live on Draenor.
I don't
No
want to live on
thanks.
Draenor, or
Yeah.
I don't want to live on alternate timeline Draenor, or on Outland. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't like Outland. I hate Hellfire Peninsula, and I've been going through it again in Classic, and man, is that zone soul destroying.
Oh, it's so dull, isn't it? So
It's
dull.
just it's the aesthetics of it. It's the red on red. I've never liked it. I couldn't stand Firelands for the same reason. But yeah, I think there's a lot of scope to go places. I don't know how much stock I going back to the Il'gynoth Whispers. I don't know how much stock I put in those now. I feel a lot of those have been answered. The only one that does still tweak my interest is the imposter on a golden throne.
Yeah.
And then that he will bring in the darkness. That's got to be Terralion. And if you listen, if anybody hasn't done this, go to Stormwind Docks, find Terralion, Shaw, and Gen, and do the stay a while and listen.
Yeah.
Because oh my god, Terralion is so righteous. He is a
And
religious
racist.
fascist. Yeah,
He
yeah,
is not having
definitely.
those dragons in his city. In fact,
No.
have you noticed they've the cheese guy? What's he
Yes,
called? Elling.
Elias Tring.
Yeah, he's now literally he wears different disguises, wandering around the city, spying on dragons.
Yeah,
It's a brilliant
genius.
little touch, but it's like, yeah, I just think,
I love that.
Yeah,
I didn't actually realise they'd used the cheese guy for that.
Yeah,
yeah,
they
but
have.
I
because
got spotted
he's got an eye
that.
patch.
I
It's
got
like
that so
city
once.
guard, but he's got an eye patch. So it's like
Yeah,
Love it.
auction house
Yeah.
vendor, but he's got an eye patch, and it's just the
That's
same
great.
guy.
so he does the bank, the auction house, is he in the portal room and in
Yeah, he's a major apprentice. Yeah,
yeah, and he's in the embassy as well. So he's the places that you go as a new Drakthir. But it's the language that Terralion uses when he's talking to Shaw, and Shaw's language in return is extremely official. Like it's like the kind of if you think like Game of Thrones, where it's that fantasy setting of they're being super polite because actually what they really want to do is be super rude to each other. And it's that thing of I am showing you respect because I have to. I am giving you the title of High Commander Terralion because that is your formal name, and therefore you can't accuse me of not showing respect, even though I think you're being a giant knobhead. And it's completely flipped on his head when Shaw and Gen talk about Anduin. And there's the much more familial, much more friendly, warm conversation between the two of them. And you don't feel like your teeth are on edge and like somebody's drawing nails down a chalkboard listening to them talk. It's much more heartwarming. And that going back to that Il'gynoth whisper of the gold one on the throne and the darkness and everything else, I was like, oh yeah, you're a religious nut freak, aren't you? And we're really gonna you're really gonna bring us into trouble.
well, step out of the game for a second. The reason why the Il'gynoth Whispers are the impact has lessened is they were very much written pre Danusa and that team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
obviously he wants to move away with his own story. But I think there are some threads which he could easily take from, because most of them have been concluded. Some of them were just intentional dead ends, and some of them are vague enough to have some sort of weight to them.
Yes.
Because my particular one that I quite like is I'm actually got its hand, but it's something along the lines of darkened lanterns will light again. And I found a little article. It's basically like it's the Dragonflight. They've lost the powers in Kata and a Dragon Soul, and they're going to retake that power back in Dragonflight or beyond.
Oh, so it could all just be part of the evil plan.
Well, how well, I don't know. The problem with prophecies is you have to question the source of them, and this is going to be, for example, the old gods are meant to be all knowing. Well, the old Void Lords rather are supposed to be all knowing, all powerful, and that's fine. But then you have other people giving very specific visions. And I'm speaking now about the jailer in the Sylvanas book. He gave very specific visions to Sylvanas. And it's like, does he have that power? Like, where have we got this from? That's one of the things I disliked about that particular story arc was if he can see the future so well, why is he fucking up so often?
Yeah.
I buy the
So much experimentation.
There's two ideas
Yeah.
for me. This you try something so many times that eventually it works out for you. That's one thing. Like if you've got infinity of time, eventually something you keep throwing enough darts at the wall, it's going to hit eventually.
Yeah, something's stuck.
Yeah.
That's fine. I understand. I can buy that logic. I can also buy the logic of I can see the future. I know what the right path is. But to mix those two, kind of like muddies the idea of both, and it's like,
Yeah.
what are you throwing your darts at?
More often than not, his failure was somebody else's free will, and he then ultimately wanted to rewrite the entirety of the universe in his own image. So I can kind of like bypass that a little bit with the lore of, he had to, he could see the future, he had a grand plan, he knows what's coming for us, but getting him in a position where he can put the universe in the best possible position to deal with it, that is not something he had any control over. So he had to rely on using other actors on his behalf. So, the Lich King, Ner'zhul, and all these other kind of actors that played out over the years to get us to where we got to. I think, that's more related to people's free will. And I do think there's a storyline of free will kind of sat in the background to both of that, and also what we're probably going to experience in the Dragon Isles with the dragon aspects finding out through one of the dungeons that actually, and through one of the books in Alderman, although
even during the cinematic,
we don't tell them very quickly, but yeah, during the cinematic as well, to some extent, that actually the water of the Dragon Isles is tainted by the Titans and as a form of control. So there's again that kind of, we're trying to remove free will. There's an agenda on both sides. There's an agenda from the Pantheon, and there's an agenda from the old gods. And again, I kind of put those up against each other as kind of a bit of a juxtaposition of old gods and void lords versus Pantheon and Titans.
Just as like a counterpoint pushback to the idea that the old god, there's the Titans have mind controlled the dragons. There's another interpretation where it's not that they are mind controlling them. It is the Titans don't like chaos and unpredictability. They want order. And it's not that they are mind controlling them, it's more that they are giving them an underlying bias towards an ordered, structured state.
Mm-hmm.
They're not specifically saying you must be such and such a person, you are mind controlled. It's like, organise yourself a bit, rather than be like random and chaos and we can't control that.
Yeah, could it also, just going on that a bit more, could it also be that it continues, that it like bolsters the magic that took them away from the elementalists to start with? So it's given them a greater intelligence, it's giving them their greater powers, and that the whatever is in the water is just kind of topping that up almost, and continuing that so that they don't revert back to
like a free refill.
Yeah. Like we've given you the main meal. Now come back for your free refill and make sure you remain sated and satisfied. But I mean, my experience of anything being tainted, for want of a better word, in a game, like whether it's a water supply or a food source, is usually that there is some element of control in there, whether it's a malicious intent to control things, or whether it's we're doing this for the best interests of the planet. I think remains to be seen.
It is stated as a control mechanic in the books in Alderman, so I think I'm going to take that from the Titans' perspective. Where they're communicating to each other. They're saying, it's a control.
Is it the Titans' perspective, or is it specifically Odin's perspective? Because he
possibly Odin's.
Odin seems to be doing a lot of shit on his own back, and he's like, "I'm doing this. You follow me and say nothing about it." He's like the one where
he's
But-
Shady.
I just got this out because the cosmology chart keeps coming up in my head, and I just want to point out, we've just had life versus death. We're now talking about disorder and order, and then there's a very good chance that we'll be dealing with light and shadow in the
Cosmic
next
disco war.
expansion. So I do wonder whether we're just moving clockwise around moving around, because we are talking about these kind of opposing forces, and it does look like, as you say, we're talking about the old gods and the void lords being disorder, but the titans wanting to kind of order everything, and that's kind of what those Alderman books talk about as well. So I just want to, it's in the cosmology chart as well. It's kind of interesting how we're using that.
I think the cosmology chart's been a guiding force for a while and will continue to be a guiding force. There's
the thing. Finish.
No, it's all right. It's very interesting that you mentioned that, because when you look, have you got the Grimoire of the Shadowlands as well, Cap?
Don't have that one.
So in there, it's on my bookshelf, but I'll leave it where it is. In there is another cosmology chart, which is it's the same chart, but viewed from the perspective of somebody from the Shadowlands, from the perspective of death. And it's exactly the same chart, just from their perspective. And I wonder if we'll get a similar scenario where we get that chart yet again, but from a different perspective, whether it's from the Void Lords or wherever, showing that their part of the chart is in the center and everything else spins around it.
Yeah, I think we look at the chart as like a printed map, and it's more of a 3D model where
it's more like
you spin it in space, and wherever you are in the middle of it, everything else looks slightly different, but the connections are relatively static.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, what I was going to say is, so if we've got the Titans on the side of order, is there any sort of disorder, chaos type power beings? Because it's obviously not. It's not the old gods, and it's not. I mean, the primalists are, in theory, controlled by the dragons, but there's the proto dragons. But those proto dragons got their intelligence from somewhere, and it was also hinted at previously in the one of the earlier cinematics of this Dragonflight pre-launch, is that the dragon aspects had their intelligence before they were uplifted by the Titans.
Yeah,
and they were more intelligent.
Intelligence.
They had that more than the average proto drakes. So, where did that come from? It seems odd to have these, let's say, 5 aspects, and is it 4 elementalists?
4, but I wonder if it was 5 and Galakron's the 5th.
Yeah. So it's like, where has that come from? Where's that knowledge come from?
Right, I need. Wasn't Galakron just some kind of aberration, though?
No, so they were all effectively proto drakes, the whole lot. The aspects, Galakron, the whole lot. Galakron drank from the water that is on the Dragon Isles, but it was corrupted by, I want to say Yogg-Saron or Yogg-Saron.
Yeah, because it's in the Storm Peaks.
Thank you very much. And then kind of basically,
so that was in Northrend.
That was in Northrend, Wormrest, kind of all around that area, became Galakrons. So kind of, grew all these extra appendages and eyes, and started kind of, really not just being cannibalistic for the eggs and the other dragons, but eating whole dragons. There's no reason why Galakron couldn't be, we don't know this yet, but Galakron couldn't have been one of the 5 primalists, because we've got 5 aspects and 5 primal energies. So we don't know what kind of energy Galakron had or represented, other than he was just disordered, mad, hungry. The primalists, the rest of the primalists, the other 4, we don't know what they're trying to do. Maybe their jam is, let's bring back Galakron. We don't know. But they all represent a kind of an element or an elemental force. So you've got Razageth with kind of air and lightning. The others are probably be kind of fire, earth, nature, etc.
Well, if the leak is right, we're going to go underground in 10.1. So
I have a suggestion then. Is Galakron spirit? Is he corrupted spirit? Because we know that Azeroth has more spirit than Draenor did. Is he corrupted spirit as an element?
Don't know.
So you're making me think about the
Yeah.
the Draenor Chronicle book now, because there was there was something about that where Draenor lacked something that Azeroth had.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
It has the 4 elements, but it didn't have spirit. It didn't
Yeah.
have that as an extra element. So
Because the other one's decay, isn't it? So you've got decay, air,
Mhm.
fire, spirit, water, and earth. So Galakrond could represent spirit or decay.
yeah. Or maybe he started with spirit and then became decay.
Yeah. We're not. I don't think we're going to know that.
Talking
just
about
yet.
talking about Razageth, one thing that I found quite funny in the cinematic where there's quite a few things that were funny. The little arms was one,
yeah.
and the fact that she smacked Rathian in the head.
Yeah.
But the other one was she looked to me like she was Drust. The way
Yes,
whatever they'd drawn around her head looked very Drust-like to me, and I
Mm.
don't know if I'm the only one that thinks that.
No, if you look at the Drust druid forms, they've definitely got the tusks that are like
and it's like
over and
quills
under.
or something for her hair, and I was like, that to me looks really Drust-like. So that intrigued me. The other thing that's really intrigued me, and you know, in the Dragonflight Collector's Edition, you get the 5 aspect badges. And the aspect for Earth is Rathian. It clearly says Rathian, right? Rathian is a little dragon. He's tiny. He's a tiny dragon.
He's
and
only like
standing
8 years old.
I know, but when he stands next to Alex Strasser and the others, even like next to Kalik in the cinematics, he's tiny. His character model is smaller as well. And I'm like, how is he going to be turned into an aspect? What happens? Maybe it's in that underground bit. Maybe we go into the earth and we get something out of there and we do something that helps him. I don't know. But that boy's got to grow up.
Well, we don't know he is going to be. So yes,
Well, we don't know he is going to be.
He's
but
the badge, but we spend a good portion of time in the expansion possibly making that decision as a player base.
possibly,
I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but
I
there
know what you mean. Yeah,
there is a setup for the players to make that decision.
So there is like an area of my knowledge which I'm lacking because I'm actually reading through the book at the moment, so I've not finished it, so I'm going to spoil myself potentially. But maybe this was in Wrath and I just don't remember it. How did Kalik become an aspect? Because did the Titans come and give him the power?
No, he was chosen from his own Dragonflight. So
the power came from the blue dragons themselves.
Well, he was made the leader. He wasn't ever. I don't think he was ever
magically uplifted in any way that I
so
recall.
so he's no different than he's like physically different than Alexstrasza and the rest.
Well, he doesn't have any power either. Is kind of like kind of how I would describe it. So yes, okay, he channeled some power into the demon/dragon soul to get rid of Deathwing, but I don't think any of them now have any power. So they're kind of like almost aspects in name. So you have to remember that aspect is, I guess, what
it's a title, I suppose.
Each kind of race of dragons gives us a titular title to their titular title. What? As a title to their leader.
A titular name.
A titular name. But to their leader. And I think that we might be blurring aspect as in raised as an aspect by the Titans and aspect as in the leader of their Dragonflight.
Because I was going to say, if it was he was given that power through the blue dragons, there's a problem there because there's not enough black dragons to give him any power, even if he was selected. Because realistically, is there 4 black dragons now, canonically?
Well, there's him, Abyssian,
Sabalian, and Ebonhorn.
Yeah. Well, Ebonhorn is Abyssian, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there might only be 3 then. I don't know.
So there's 3 that we know of that are not corrupted.
There was a black dragon in Outland, but I think we might have killed that one because he followed Deathwing the first time Deathwing went through in Warcraft 2, I want to say, and didn't come back, and that's why there's black dragons in Bladed Mountains.
Now I'm trying to remember who.
That's why Gruul the Dragon Slayer's in there because he's.
I'm gonna say that dragon's probably dead because in Blaze Edge Mountains, it's pretty much just dead dragon.
No,
Yeah.
I can't remember. I wish I could just jump into beta and double check. But I think that may be in the story as well.
Yeah, I just knew there's another dragon off Azeroth.
Maybe, it just tickled me as to how small his model is in comparison to the others, even next to Khalek.
Well, this is the thing, because
He's just a baby, though.
Yeah,
In
he is.
dragon terms.
Because you look at you read the book and you read the story, you see the images of Galakrond, and then you go to Wemr's temple and it's like, I mean, he's big, but it's not that big. Not the way you kind of built him up to be as big as he was.
But we don't. So when you're in Dragon Blight at Galakrond's Rest, you don't see all of his skeleton. That's not all of his skeleton. That's only a part of it.
You see his skull, don't you? You can sort of like work backwards to.
Yeah, I
suppose,
think
unless he had a really tiny head.
Yeah, there's definitely a.
Ragnaros had tiny legs, so you don't know.
I think there's a artistic license that gets used as well.
Yeah.
Like when you look in the cinematics, the aspects and Galakrond are, they have to fit them into the game, and I don't think they could technically fit them in the game if they made them quite as dramatically big as they are in the cinematics. Eliza in chat's just saying it's Sibelian who is in Outland before.
Okay. I knew there was someone out there, yeah.
Yeah,
but
so
he's the main challenger to Rathian as leader of the Dragonflight.
I think he could be, but where? So okay, let's say those two go up against each other. Where does Abyssian / Ebenhorn put himself?
Cap knows this because Cap's played the beta.
I'm trying to be quiet.
Yeah, I know the mechanical outcome.
Either of you, because I know you're being quite careful not to spoiler it for yourselves.
I know the mechanical outcome of the decisions that Cap knows about. I don't know how the story leads up to that. So I know what happens in the story in terms of gameplay mechanics of it.
Okay.
There are 2 tracks and 2 reward tracks. That's all I want to say.
Interesting. Okay. So I get what Cap's saying about like Rathian, he's on the badge, but he might not be an aspect. And that is valid because there's another person on those badges who is not currently in the game as Dragonflight. They're still in the Shadowlands, as far as I know.
Yes.
I have heard rumours that this changes as well. So I can see that, but I also I personally I would think he's going to be the dragon aspect for Earth, and he's going to fulfill his destiny. Doesn't mean he's not going to get corrupted and turn out.
Well, you say what is his destiny? Because Deathwing's not his dad.
Yeah.
He kind of made it up. It's all like smoke and mirrors. It's like no, he's not your dad, Rathian. He's your dad in the sense of he's another black dragon.
Yeah.
And you thought you were the last one, and then it turns out there was other people.
Yeah, I mean,
I think technically he's his nephew at best.
I like Rathian as a character. I think he's very interesting. I think some of the voice lines he comes out with on the Drakthir starting quests when you're wandering through Stormwind and stuff are sheer genius. I actually think Abyssian might be a better leader for the Dragonflight because he's older, he's wiser. But I mean, we'll just see. I just think it just stood out to me how tiny his model is, and it just makes me laugh. And I wonder how he could get to be an aspect if he's so young and so tiny. He's such a tiny little boy.
That's why I want, if Murazond becomes a thing, I want the new leader to be Chromie, and I want it to be a little whelp. A little flying whelp.
I might have a spoiler on that.
So I'm just I don't want to spoil anything again, but
but this is a law speculation. There are
there will be some spoilers. So I'm just going to say that Sibelian and Rathian are very much in the game, and very much in the storyline in terms of what you might be doing on a regular basis, and whether you make a decision to support kind of one or the other's position. Then there are also a whole bunch of other black dragons. So I think we have to remember that the black dragonflight Deathwing sort of scurried away a whole bunch of eggs to Outland as well. So there was a clutch there, along with kind of some of the dragons. So you've got Ivorian, Osaria. You've also got Zephyrian, Basquilian, and a whole bunch of others. I think Vasalia. So these are all kind of like named black dragons that are supporting Sibelian and Rathian as we reach Dragon Isle. So there's definitely a sort of a cast, if you like,
Yeah,
of
I like
black
that.
dragons now.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. There is if you have Dragonflight Collector's Edition and you look at the end of the art book, there is a bit of a giveaway at the end of that book as well.
I haven't actually sat down with it yet, but I'm gonna.
I refuse to buy those collector's editions. I refuse.
It's such a good one.
Because I'm a relative new person. I'd have to. My collector
You'd have to
instinct
go
would.
back
I'd have
and
to go
collect
back
them
in them all. I can't afford
Yeah.
that. I can't afford to buy
It is
Same.
a vanilla collector's
somebody
edition.
who when I was like full on at the beginning of my WoW journey, so I started in Wrath. I did get the Kata one and I did get the Mists one, and the Mists one was a gift. So I don't think the codes have been used in Mists. I mean, not that it matters now. But then I have a very large gap because I don't have any between Mists and Dragonflight. I was going to get Shadowlands and I didn't get it at the time. I didn't have the money available. So as soon as this one went on sale, thankfully, I think it was just around the time that I had started my new job and got my first paycheck. So
I know nothing about this.
So I ordered it straight away. But I was very, very fortunate to pick up a complete Wrath collector's edition on Gumtree for 30 quid.
Oof.
That was like an absolute steal. So I have Wrath. But yeah, I have gaps, a lot of gaps, and I do want to fill them, and I do keep an eye out. Unfortunately, eBay right now is just full of people flogging Shadowlands ones at like 150 upwards.
Yeah.
Which it was only 120 when you ordered it. So people
And it's
are making.
Shadowlands.
No, sorry, not Shadowlands. Dragonflight. They're now selling Dragonflight collector's editions on eBay.
Oh, people selling it for more than. God, that's rough.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
well, that's what they do.
Yeah, but
They
you said it was
order more
100 to buy. Is that 100
100
plus?
I think it's 130.
Yeah, but then
yeah,
if
it
you
was.
got
Sorry.
you've got shipping, because Blizzard shipping was always awful.
I
I
think
can't remember either, actually, whether it was included.
I bought stuff before from Blizzard, and the customs charges and everything was.
I was
never
shipped
again.
by Blizzard's EU gear store, so
Yeah.
the shipping was
that was
was
before.
US.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
back in
it's
the
bad
US
if
days.
it's bad if you're on the US.
Yeah, if you're in the US store.
But if you want to buy, here's my top tip for buying old collector's editions. Get Gumtree. Yes, eBay is worth a look, but Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace are also your friends.
You think Emma is selling the Jaina statue?
Yeah.
I'll take that.
My next purchase will be. Oh, and if anybody wants to pay me like £1,200 for my right arm, I will take it so that I can buy the Alex Strauss statue.
I think you'd be better off without a kidney, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Go kidney first.
I'll learn to use my left hand. It's fine.
But you can function with one kidney. Why would you sacrifice a hand?
Get more money. But yeah, I would do that. But yeah,
Drink
I mean
less.
the collector's editions are if you are of a completionist mindset, they would be extremely expensive. I am not in a rush to complete mine, so
if I don't start, I don't have to complete. That's how I'm sticking for it for now.
Very, very wise. And but the art book, has a spoiler about the leadership of the Bronze Dragonflight. So
okay.
Bronze.
At the very end, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I know how that's going to go anyway. So I'm again.
There isn't really.
It's heavily hinted in the story.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of a third bronze dragon.
No, you won't. Most people won't.
There isn't really any
If you would like a
response.
clue, I can give you a clue.
No, it's fine.
It's like I spy all of a sudden. I spy with my lie. A tiny bronze dragon. I'll get the art book out later and have a little squiz. I've resisted so far.
Oh, it's just so beautiful. I keep
It's
glancing
a
at the
gorgeous
box
book.
shelf, and it's just
Yeah,
Mine's just there. I'm like,
the next thing I might buy is the Northrend.
exploring Northrend. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is good.
I'm waiting for people to tell me it's not full of crap like the Kalimdor one was.
Yeah, I have not got the Kalimdor.
The Kalimdor was bad, but with the Eastern Kingdoms, brilliant. Loved it.
Eastern Kingdoms was superb, and from a Lordaeron fan perspective, oh, Chef's Kiss, brilliant.
Oh, we find out where Tyrannus
We
is.
know where our king is, our long lost king. Yes. Which actually there is, without being a spoiler, there is where did I see this the other day? There is a tomb with a Lordaeron symbol on it in an unexpected place. And I
Torbarad.
can't remember where it was.
If you go to Torbarad, there's a Lordaeron tomb there.
It may well have been Tolbarad. Yeah.
There's also one in Stormwind, but I think that's just using the assets twice.
I think the one in Stormwind is a unwritten memorial to Arthas from his one-time friend Virion.
Yeah, probably.
That's my interpretation of that one, because it is marked out. It's got its own little spot. It's got the Lordaeron
It's because of his
shield
own
on.
wife.
It's big. Yeah, it's
It's a
bigger
good
than his
shout.
wife.
Yeah,
You
it's
know. So I think that's where I think Varian wanted a kind of a spot that he could.
Just to
go
go on
in.
an offshoot, speaking of tombs, I don't know if this has always been there or whether I only just noticed with like Dragonflight. Sverin's tomb always had like a shaft of light on it.
Yes.
Because it's only because it's like we've got the rain effects now. It was like the rain. Yeah, I was like, oh, I've never noticed that. Like a shaft of light hitting his tomb. It's just...
No, it's always been there. Always been. It.
I
That
love it
actually
there.
brings me back to something that I thought of earlier as well, when we were talking about Azeroth maybe being corrupted, right? So if Azeroth is already corrupted and wholly infested by the old gods, why are we able to wield the light? Wouldn't the light have abandoned us and abandoned the planet that we're trying to save?
I mean, the light tried to save Illidan.
Yeah.
Just because it's, I don't know, it's if something is lost, it's not unrecoverable. I don't think.
Yeah. And also, why would the light not protect us?
Also, why do disc priests exist?
Good shout. Why do
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, and also why do void priests, shadow
why do
priests?
shadow
It's like
that was just an interesting thought to me about, if, and I know that the light is not, and it deals in absolutes, doesn't it? So it's not 100%. It's not as great.
Do you have a void elf by any chance?
I do, yes.
Go into Stormwind Cathedral as a void elf, and they just call you all sorts of names.
Okay.
As soon as you walk in, they're like, "Get out! You should not be here." And
yeah, which plays into that, the light being an absolute. So if it is an absolute, why is it stuck around on a corrupted planet? That's
true.
Again, it's not the light saying those things; it's people.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's just those little things every now and again that tickle me, and that was one of them.
Because there's that Naru on Revendreth who stuck around.
Yeah, but the light obviously invaded Revendreth.
Yeah, the light invaded, but I think it was captured, and they were like, "You're unclean or you're impure. You can't come back with us," or something along those lines. So it stayed there because it didn't want to go back and potentially infect the light with.
I wonder
the darkness.
if we're thinking like Void Lords and old gods and whatnot are involved in underlying things within Dragonflight. It does just pique my interest as to where the light would sit with that, because it does tend to show up in those scenarios.
Look, the moment you know that we're going to get a light war is when Yrel turns up.
Oh God, yeah.
When Yrel turns up, and she's there with Tyrellian, you know we are
Yeah.
getting a full-on
If she's
holy
with
war.
Tyrellian, oh no, the religious fanaticals. Oh God,
Yeah,
no.
that when she appears in the story again, that's the moment
Yeah.
we know
That's when it's
where they're
game
headed.
on.
Yeah, if that happens, I may have to re-roll my main to like be completely anti-light, be like something that's completely void consumed at all times. Just
Wait, but you're a Death Knight.
I know,
I think you'll be alright.
but it's not voidy, is it? It's death.
True, it is death.
Maybe
Surely,
if I did
surely you want to be impartial. I'm going to stay impartial as a hunter. Be like,
I just want to kill some sheep on Elswyn Forest.
Yeah, exactly. Make some traps, whittle some arrows.
And then as a mage, I tell you that was a polymorph person and you've murdered them.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that would be brutal. That's such a good murder plotline for a WoW story, though, isn't it?
I went out hunting sheep and it turned out I killed the mage.
Well, we have mass polymorph now, so you kill like multiple people at once.
Mass polymorph looks like a fun spell.
I've not found a good use for it yet, apart from
PvP
memes. That implies doing PvP.
There will be some point where it's good, but yeah. And just as I think my over abiding wish for Dragonflight is that Alexstrasza doesn't become the baddie, that we do have that Azeroth focused storytelling, and we get, I would just like an uplifting ending. I think the way the way the theme uplifts me. I would like to come out of Dragonflight feeling happy in Azeroth. I didn't feel happy. I don't feel happy in Shadowlands. Didn't feel happy in Shadowlands for a long time, and didn't feel happy at the end of Shadowlands. I was just glad it was over, thankfully. And that's I'd like to be able to get to the end of Dragonflight and feel like, damn, that was a good expansion. I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah, I think I mean, maybe Dragonflight's different, but the last couple of expansions, every patch is its own self-contained thing to a degree. And it's like, you start playing BFA, and you're like, oh, this is all about, well, for the Alliance, it's all about like pirates and defeating Ashvane, and it's like about Jaina and her family, it's a bit about the Drust, it's a bit of some witches and stuff, and it's all really self-contained. And then Ashvane attacks, and then you defeat her with the power of Jaina's brother coming back. And at that point, if you'd went, you're going to end this patch by fighting N'Zoth and Ny'alotha, you'd be like, what?
Yeah, absolutely.
But up until that point, it felt like a really good, solid, rounded story that had an ending. And then Nejutar came, and that was like, great, loved it, but it was like, what about like Boralus and all that stuff for Jaina? That just like, I'd like those initial stories to actually run through an expansion and not be a case of, well, you've done the questing now, it's over.
I agree. I kind of I hope they do go longer form with the stories in Dragonflight from start through even into the next expansion. I think we need to have multiple layered storylines. Kind of paying off at different points in patches, paying off at different points in the future, paying off at different times, so that you've got this constant feeling of story payoff. And it's really hard to get a story to pay off when you introduce a character, a cold introduction like we had to the jailer, and then you've only got 2 years to build their character and give you an outcome that's satisfying. It was never going to happen. It's just not possible.
It wasn't going to happen with the jailer because they made him too big and he had too much power. It works with a smaller character. It works.
It works to a degree because there's lots of interesting, fun characters in Shadowlands, but because they are from the Shadowlands, how are you gonna
You can't take them.
Lady Moonberry, for example, was fairly fun and interesting.
Yep.
How do you do that now? It's like you can't take that character out of Ardenweald or the Shadowlands and put her in Azeroth because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So there's lots of those characters who are lost to their zones.
Yes, there are, but there are also characters like there are characters still in Azeroth that we could bring forward into
Yeah,
Dragonflight. And one that's come up recently for me is Flynn Fairwind. I mean, why are we not? We're on boats. We're going on boats to the Dragon Isles. Where's Flynn? It's perfect excuse to get him back. And I think what you're saying about that. So Final Fantasy does it very well where they introduce a character and that character takes you through that expansion. So in Heaven's Ward we have Amaric, in Stormblood we have Lise. Not the biggest fan of Lise, but they do a very good job, and Hien. And then now in Shadowbringers there's other people that have taken me through that story, and they do that very, very well. And that's one of the things that I wish WoW did better. And you follow those arcs. WoW, I think I said this when we had our chat, Nick. I find the conclusions to WoW's expansions usually a little bit of a damp squib. And I think it lacks that satisfaction of this is the story that's been told. And the jailer was too big. They made him too big. That was the problem. We didn't get to know him. We didn't get to, like, we've been left with this tantalizing little thing at the end about why he thinks he's done what he's done, but we don't really have a lot of information about it. And he's like, there's a bigger threat coming, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you did. I don't buy it. I'm not interested in you. I don't,
yeah.
Sylvanas' story. Yes. Very into Sylvanas. Love Sylvanas' story arc up until the point where she has gone completely mustachio twirling bad guy. And I think they did a reasonable job of pulling her back.
Mm.
And I think they did a reasonable job of that. Not brilliant, but reasonable.
I do think they found the best possible outcome to appease both those who are she has to die, she's unredeemable, and those who are like she's done nothing wrong. Because people, you looked at it and you were like, how do you resolve this? Keep both camps not happy but contented. And I think they managed to find that middle ground where sending her to the more for, let's say, in theory, eternity, or realistically, 2 expansions.
Then Anduin comes back.
Yeah, it gave them a reason to do it, and it felt like a punishment, but it felt like she was also redeeming herself. It found a nice way to resolve that situation.
I enjoyed that story. To be honest, I think well, I mean, Sylvanas' story arc has had multiple expansions to play out, and I think that's why it's a bit more satisfying than something that's a bit too quick. I mean, I found the end of Legion very satisfying. I think the sword being stabbed in, and the end of like Illidan and Sagaris. I think those characters have been with us for so long that I kind of you felt like you were on a journey with them, and they didn't kill either of them off either, which was also strangely satisfying. So we don't actually know what's happened. So it's that to me I enjoyed, but I think that was probably the last ending that I kind of really thought, oh yeah, that was good. I'm excited for what's next. What the hell is going on with this sword? You're right. I think BFA floundered in a few places. I think the stories were too there were 3 distinct stories in BFA that led us to N'Zoth, and we had no way in hell to know that's where we were headed at the start of it. I thought we were getting a really fun pirate adventure. So I don't know. It went a bit weird. Pirates and dinosaurs. I was like, yes, let's go. But they also set BFA up with the war between the Horde and the Alliance, and that I struggled with.
That wasn't the main plot. It
No,
turned out
it wasn't.
that was like
at
a side plot.
Yeah.
And I kind of what you said about Legion there. I wasn't very active in Legion. I sort of came back really for the launch of BFA. So I didn't, but I love the class tools in Legion. And what you're saying there about that, there was a very clear end goal in Legion. We knew from the beginning this is what's happening. And that takes me back to Wrath, where I found in Wrath having Arthas appear all the way through Northrend. You knew who your baddie was. You knew who you were dealing with. You knew you knew where the final showdown was going to be. You knew all of that. And it made his presence feel so weighty and so important. And I think they did that well in Legion as well.
Yeah.
In Shadowlands, I just didn't buy the jailer. I didn't buy him as a big enough. Like it felt like I know what it reminded me of now. It felt like the Wizard of Oz. He was the man behind the
Yeah.
curtain, twiddling the knobs, not being as big as he actually seemed, and it felt a bit like that. And I'm really hopeful that in Dragonflight, they've started out, in my opinion, like from what I've seen, pretty solid with, you know, these are the elementals. This is who we're going to fight. We're going to yes, there's going to be some surprises along the way. And Taron Gregory has said like next week on the 28th there'll be something that we aren't expect. You know, the cinematics that we get then are going to change like things, but that we will know by the end. Who I think he said by the end. Did
End
they
of the
not say
first
by the
raid
end?
patch,
Yeah, that we'll know.
you'll know who the end boss is.
Yeah.
And that's
So
why
I'm that feels good. Like we've got this time now to do the speculation, and then we get to the end of that first raid, and we'll know who the big bad boss is. I'm going to put money on it being a Ridicron, because we've had that name drop, and that they're a big bad elemental type. Cap's like, I'm trying not to say anything. I'm really trying not
No,
to say anything.
I do think you're possibly right there. Um, I'm actually optimistic for a twist and Iridicron being a slightly longer form story. I
I'd
don't know.
like that too. Yeah, I'd like that too. I just my heart really, really wants this to be that satisfying feeling again. And I loved BFA. I really enjoyed BFA, but I also agree that having an old god that kind of felt like it was coming out of the blue was a bit strange. And Shadowlands just lost me. And I had high hopes at the beginning of Shadowlands as a Death Knight main, like going in and going, oh, this is all about the history of where my class came from, and this is amazing. Didn't like it. Didn't like it.
I'm
Um,
in the rare group who, I won't say I defend Shadowlands, but Shadowlands 9.0 I think was excellent.
The leveling, yeah, the
I
initial
think
leveling experience was
where it fell
superb.
apart is 9.1, because the idea was this is an infinite world with all these infinite afterlives and all different, and then we didn't go anywhere. We had these
Yeah.
4
Let's
zones,
went back to Torghast.
and we never
Yeah.
went to these other zones. And it was like
No,
we went to Corthi, and I'm like, well, and it was Corthi, the city of secrets, but it wasn't a city.
it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't even anything like a city. It didn't
Yeah.
feel like a city. It didn't feel like a great, expansive place. It was a little island chained up, and it was so disappointing. You know, it was, and I'm gonna take my hat off to Jacoris on this one. It was a perfect opportunity for Medivh to turn up in the undead world, in the afterlife. You know, City of Secrets, all the rest of it. Jacoris swears to this day that the Keeper of Secrets is still Medivh. And it just didn't feel exciting enough. It really
But
didn't.
we went to Tazavesh, and it's only a city, but we're like, here is like a whole new culture, a whole new place. It's a dungeon. You can't really explore it. Like, and there was like, what was it? Craftinium was mentioned, and there was a couple others that were mentioned in like the Venthia Art Hall. It's like
Yeah.
they mention these places, and then we don't go anywhere. We go back to Maldraxxus, and we go back to, and then we went to Zereth Mortage, which as a zone, fine. Personally, I found it a
beautiful.
little bit sparse. I thought what was there was. I'm giving like a passing grade in that they were trying things. Most of it worked, and I'm happy for it to come back. Like Catalyst was great. The I wanted to see more of this language, the magical language with music tones, and you collect these ciphers to understand language. But there was nothing there. It never.
Yeah.
There was no
Never
payoff for doing it. You could
There's
hear
no
what they
payoff for
were
that, was
saying.
there?
Like,
But the rep run was good. The zone was beautiful. The castles are fantastic. I thought the raid was really good, actually, to be honest. I know it was a really long one for Race to World First, but I actually thought it was quite iconic.
oh yeah.
I'm sure anyone in Race World First or casting it was like, oh God, never again. But but I loved it as a viewer. I thought it was brilliant.
I
So
did too.
you know, overall it was a good patch. But you're right, there was a lot of stuff in there, and I feel they've made the mistake in the past of doing this like they did with the cipher and the language of making a feature sound really cool, but actually it's quite shallow. as a
But
feature.
if that language feature was like you could find books or you could speak to NPCs and they told you about the first ones, it's like
Yep.
if you're a raider, you don't care, you don't do it, fine. But if you want the lore, do this. It'll pay off. There might even be like
You don't put Easter eggs.
even another quest line or a cutscene that tells you, so that when it gets to the end boss and jailer dies and says, "Oh, there's more," you'd be like, "Oh, I know that because I read that book earlier,"
Yeah,
or there was something
exactly.
else. But even if you've done the entire zone top to bottom, when he says, "Oh, there's a greater threat," you're going, "Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
I
right,
guess
okay.
so." There was no foreshadowing at all, and it just felt like, what's the point of having that language other than just to fill time?
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it wasn't the worst grind in the world. It came quickly and it had some fun things, but felt like there could have been more to it than what they were initially hyped it up to be.
I would like all grinds to be about that length, though. That for me, it was a good length for a grind. If there's anything positive to come out of that, don't make me do Korthia. I hate it. But if Korthia's grind had been as straightforward and relatively quick, couple of weeks, enjoyable like Zereth Mortis, and it had been somewhere nice to be that didn't feel like you were just this horrible, miserable hellscape, colorless, boring place, it would have felt better.
I think you would felt better at Korthia if it was just a rep grind, but it wasn't.
Maybe.
It was a rep grind, and then unconnected from that, it was also an artifact grind.
Yeah, I didn't.
So you were grinding two things at once at different rates. And it's the same with
anything on Zereth Mortis either.
Oh,
Yeah,
Zereth
so-
Mortis is really fun and quick. I would recommend.
I've played through. I think I've completed the story campaign on Zereth Mortis, but I haven't got the rep up anywhere yet.
the rep was. If you were raiding regularly, you would have got rep really quickly.
Yeah.
The bosses were dropping it.
Yeah.
Trash was dropping it. Yeah,
Do you
it was
think-
really quickly.
You know how you just said like Tazavesh is a whole other city and it's in a dungeon, and obviously we've referred to Oribos as the airport hub. Do you think they nixed City of Secrets because they didn't want to give us another city? They were like, well, we've given you Tazavesh and you've got Oribos, we're not going to give you another city. Do you think they might have nixed it because of that? Or do you think it is what it is and it was always decided to be the same, to be that?
I don't. I think they just didn't know what to do with Korthia. I think. I don't think it was meant to be a dungeon. I don't know. I think there was going to be more to it, but they either ran out of time because they were already running long. But I'm not sure that it was going to be Tazavesh. I think Tazavesh is its own thing. Because a lot of the things they talk about in Korthia about the City of Secrets don't really line up with Tazavesh anyway, other than it being the broker place. I mean, I think the brokers are, for me, kind of like fascinating. I'd love to know more about them.
Yeah, they remind me of the ethereals.
They're like the ethereals, where
yeah,
we'll probably
yeah.
never find anything about them again. They'll just be
Yeah.
washed into the history of time, and
Yeah.
it'd
And
be
see, I
so
think
good
those
at the end of Dragonflight, an ethereal popped up or something, and they were like, here's some information. It'd be like ties the universe together a little bit more.
Yeah, I think those are some of the frustrating parts of WoW is you get all these races and they, like the Rajani with the visions, and they found a female model and we were like, oh, it's going to be a new allied race, like with the elementals, like with the brokers, where you have these amazing races that come in and are part of the story, but then we never see them again. And I understand that they're tied quite often to their particular expansion and that's it. But particularly in things like the Rajani, they are in Azeroth. We could see them again. And I can't remember their name. The guys in Oldham, the cat guys.
Oh god.
What are they called?
I can't remember.
All I can think of is Khajiit, but that's
I was just thinking all I can think of is Khajiit as well.
But their model, their four-legged model, we're getting centaurs in Dragonflight. we've got cat people, we've got centaurs, we've got dragon id. Is that what they are? Dragonid.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, there was
there's
some complaints on Twitter that is about. Well, it was in beta and it's also in live now technically. That why is so many Cultirans and Mechanomes in like the leveling experience for the Alliance, and I suppose it's both sides now. And I think the answer came back was they spent so much time developing those two races that it
that they
has to
wanted
pay
to
off.
utilize
The
them.
reason the Dracthera exist is because the Mechanomes exist. And making the legs, the arm and the arms not be the same was because of them. And they said that the Cultirans are a brand new race. They are not just humans in another skin. They are.
Yeah, they're on a completely different frame. And
they took as
everything
long
else.
to make as the Pandarans did. So they're like, why make Valde, like put Valde elves into the game when you like we spent all this time on these models, put them in there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see races with Cultiran frames in the future because they've spent so much time on this technology.
Absolutely.
So you might see Tuskar, because Tuskar have a similar sort of frame to a Cultiran in the quite bulky and stocky.
Rotund.
I could see them happening, but I wouldn't necessarily see like a Naga, for example, because there is no Naga frame. They'd have to spend time making that frame now.
Yeah, and yeah, I can understand that. I can also, like, from a story point of view, like, Cultirans are seafaring people. Why would they not have sailed out to the Dragon Isles?
True.
You know, we literally get on a Cultiran boat to take us there as Alliance, so why would we not?
Speaking of setting sail, Cap, can I ask a question?
Yes.
In as vague as possible. There's a new character that I noticed who we collect in Stormwind to talk to about. We have to speak to like artisans and engineers and merchants. There's a gnome called Wolfrid.
There is, yes.
Please tell me he's a lot in the story. I love him. He's got the ego as big as the city.
Wolfrid is quite possibly one of my favourite characters in that whole moment. I'm like, who is this awesome person, and why do we not know
don't
them
want
already?
to lose him to one little bit of dialogue.
So, yeah, unfortunately.
Listen, if you're listening, please put him in.
Yeah. He's there. He's definitely there. I think he's part of the expedition, so I think you'll find him more in the end game content than you do in the leveling experience. There might be some side quests that I'm not aware of because I didn't side quest. I only mainlined so that I could kind of avoid too much spoiler, which of course I'll be streaming, basically full on streaming all of my leveling. So if anyone wants to know what's going on, we'll do it all. But yeah, I've not come across them in the main chain.
And the other person who I want to be there for both fun and lore reasons, Reno Jackson. Do you know who Reno Jackson is?
Oh, yes.
I don't remember the character, but no, I don't think I do.
Reno Jackson is an explorer from the Explorers League.
Hearthstone.
Hearthstone. Now, he is canonically in WoW because he's in BFA. He's sat in a box looking confused. The reason he's confused is because he doesn't know that he's a blue dragon.
Wait, what?
Reno Jackson is a blue dragon in Hearthstone. He doesn't know he's a blue dragon. He forgets he's a blue dragon.
I love that.
How did I not know that?
So the idea of having the Dragonflight's back, an Explorers League, having an Explorer League who thinks he's a human but he's actually a dragon, it feels like a good time to introduce him as a side comedy character.
That would be amazing. He could be like the Flynn Fairwind of Dragonflight.
Yeah, I mean, he is like a pastiche of like Indiana Jones, that sort of adventurer. And
that's why it makes me every time I see him in Hearthstone, I think Indiana Jones. And then obviously in Oldham, the character is not called Indiana Jones; it's called Ford Harrison or something.
Yeah.
It's like
or
Indiana Harrison or something.
Some weird.
But and he's already in the game. But Reno Jackson is like the Hearthstone equivalent, isn't he?
But so there was an expansion of Hearthstone way back a couple of years ago, and he discovers that he's a blue dragon. He's got some sort of.
I did not know that.
I don't know if it's like self-induced. I don't really know the story of Hearthstone because it's not really canon. But yeah, when he's in human form, he forgets he's a dragon. But when he's a dragon, he forgets he's a human, I believe.
I love that.
That's brilliant.
That's a fun little lore
So because
tweak, isn't it?
so his
Yeah.
entire lore is based in Hearthstone. But if you go to the docks, if you complete most of the storyline of BFA, if you go to the docks where the mission table is on the boat, and then come to the docks on the side near where you can do the island expedition, it's Reno Jackson sat on a crate with a couple of others just sat there looking confused.
I'm going to go and do that straight after this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and check him out.
Logging into game in a minute to go and check that out. I love it.
So I don't think he has any dialogue,
Awesome.
but it's like he's in the game. It's canon now.
But if he's there, like if he's there in Borealis, like he's right opposite Flynn, and Flynn would be the perfect person to to take him out for a beer and try and help him like deal with this PTSD or whatever it is that has caused him.
It's
to,
not PTSD.
like,
He's
forget who he
just it's like amnesia. He doesn't know he's a dragon.
Wow. Wow.
And obviously, the reason he wants to do trace treasure is because what do blue dragons do? Look after treasure and artifacts and trinkets. So he's got this compulsion to chase artifacts because
I love that so much.
yeah, it's a great storyline. But it's obviously how much of that they're going to make WoW canon
How
as
are they
opposed to
yeah.
Hearthstone canon.
Well, it would be easy for them to bring him in on one of the Borealis boats. We go, like I said,
Yeah.
we go to the Dragon Isles on a Kultiran ship.
If you're
Why?
flying around the Inaran Plains and there's like a little side quest marker and there's this guy, a little quest chain, like 4 or 5 quests, that'd be perfect. That's all I want, just a little nod to it.
Yeah, like just a little, give a character a little moment.
Yeah, I'm not saying he needs to be
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm the new aspect of the blue dragonfly or anything like that. He doesn't need, not everything needs to be
Hey,
grand.
Kelagos, I'm really your daddy. I just
He just needs a little, little throwaway to those who know. I mean, he doesn't even have to turn to a dragon or mention it, but he'd be like, just little like hints that, oh, you know, if you know,
he's
you know.
wandering around there and going, oh, this feels familiar or
Yeah,
something
like-
like that.
I feel like I've been here before and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Although I don't actually know how old he is. He might be like a new dragon. It's
Oh, that would be so. What do you know? What his dragon name is? Does it reveal that in Hearthstone?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Let me see if I can find out.
Oh, that's all right. That would be quite funny.
For this live Googling action.
Google.
Let's check.
Just while you're doing that, we did get a tip off in chat about the cat people from Ultima Tolvir.
Yeah, I saw
Tolvir,
that come up in
yes.
chat actually. I was
You
like,
lady ate that.
yeah, okay.
I had forgotten that. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I mean, to bring it back to like what we're supposed to be talking about is Dragonflight and all of that kind of where we want it to go. It's
We've
I'm still
tangented.
Renegos.
Renegos. Okay, so
He's
we
an
need to look
orphan
out
blue
for
dragon who accidentally has been living as a human form since birth.
Oh.
And it was revealed in the Galakron's Awakening set of
Yeah.
Hearthstone, which obviously
So
Mm.
maybe if
Galakron's
there's
Awakening.
a Galakron awakening at the end of it. I mean, I think it's a stretch that Galakron.
there's
comes
also
back,
a very
frankly,
there's a character in that set which people think could be important. There's a warlock called Rafam who is the person who raises
is he not an
Galakron.
ethereal?
That name
Or is it-
rings a bell. Is he? Yeah, I think he's an ethereal, isn't he?
I'm just
Does he
checking
not look?
actually.
He looks like. I'm sure he looks like one. I need to play more Hearthstone. Apparently.
I haven't played Hearthstone in years. I find it so
he-
stressful.
He looks like one. He looks like a mummy. So yeah, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
But do you mean so
Yeah.
this isn't canon, but there's enough
There's enough
links.
tidbits there to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
They
they
could
brought that
take
from
that.
Hearthstone into WoW.
Like if you own
yeah.
that storyline, why not use some of it?
And I mean, there's enough crossover, isn't there? They take characters from WoW into Hearthstone, so why not the other way around?
Exactly.
Yeah, they
Why
sure
not
do.
do that more?
Absolutely. And also, like, I guess we need to look at legacies and think about, what changed for Galakron between the kind of the bookie books, which have been, I think, kind of largely adapted now. A little bit of retconning or adaptation from where we started.
I hope they're up
But
the
Galakron-
retcon how he died because that's so silly.
Yeah. But I think like Galakron now looks like a much more manageable character model to have in the game than as described in the books. So,
Yeah.
so I do wonder whether that, some of those retcons were more practical changes to make it an easier character to represent in the game as well. What I do think I would love to see at some point is a boss fight where we have to do it on our dragon riding mounts, to at least some extent, because flying around a massive dragon and killing a boss, that would be pretty sick. Like
You
a
haven't done
mounted
Oculus enough,
thing.
have you?
I have, but you haven't done dragon riding if you think that Oculus is anything like what I'm talking
No,
about.
I know. It's very
I'm not
different.
talking about that. I'm talking
Not
about
talking about
stationary Flappy
yeah,
Bird with 3 extra action buttons.
yeah.
The dragon riding is really, really fun, and I think adding on some powers to your dragon would be a really fun thing to do.
As I
For a
would
road fight.
caveat that with, as long as you don't, as long as the grind, and I know it's not a long grind, but as long as maxing out your dragon flying is not a requirement to do that fight.
It wouldn't matter if it was. It's easy.
Right.
Currently, there is a dungeon where you do Dragonfly, and that can be done with no upgrades. Because they pre-place like little wind gusts to keep your momentum going.
Oh, okay.
If you're fully maxed out, you don't need the wind gust. You just fly. So
yeah, it's definitely easy if you're maxed out. But you can max out. I mean, to be honest, if you follow a guide, you can max out in 30 minutes. You need to do it once. So once you've unlocked those glyphs, it's account wide. I recommend to nobody ever to follow a guide, because it is actually really fun to use the achievements to find the glyphs, and you're only ever going to do it once, because once you've done it once, it's unlocked account wide. So I would enjoy that experience, but maximum a couple of hours. I did it on beta very easily, just using the locations. There are a couple that I couldn't find where I was like, okay, now I'm just going to go and look at that one on a guide, just because I know it's around here somewhere and I can't find it. So there's some that are sort of sneakily hidden. But it was a really fun experience. So I would definitely suggest everyone get on that.
Just to go back to the idea of resizing Galakrond for in-game purposes, I can foresee a situation where they have, I don't want to say Caverns of Time, but more like, do you remember, what's it called? The Chromie questline in Legion.
Is that the Time Lord one?
Yeah,
the achievement.
The Time Lords, where you went back and did certain historical events and tried to change them. But because they showed us the pre-cinematic with Nefarian and the Gauntlet, but then there's also an in-game model of Nefarian with the Gauntlet. Would that need to exist?
Oh, is there?
Why would that need to exist if it's already been destroyed in the cutscene?
Oh,
so
God.
Imagine if you could go back in time, or at least reimagine through
100%. We're going 100%. There'll be a dragon. There'll be a dungeon in the dragons in Caverns of Time.
Yeah, so we go back
can't tell
to
you
fight.
why I know that, because it will be a spoiler. But 100%, there will be a fight, and there will be a new dungeon in Caverns of Time this expansion. Yes,
I can't see the reason not to have
through different timelines as well. So they're definitely, it would be madness to have an expansion where a quarter or a fifth of your kind of overall dragon awesomeness is time traveling, and to not massively use that to have fun.
I know there is somebody who reappears as like a shadow, like a kind of like a shade of themselves, and we go through a memory. It's not a bronze dragon, but I know there is somebody like that. But based on the spoiler at the end of the art book, I would bet money on us going to the Caverns of Time this expansion.
There's also, which is something I noticed yesterday, which, if you're in Chromie Time and you queue for a dungeon, currently you can queue in the present time, and it'll give you BFA. I was level 52 at the time, so it was BFA, Shadlands Dungeons, and there was Heroic Hour of Twilight, which is a 5-man dungeon. So it was like, why is that somehow separate from the rest? It could be a bug, but why would a dungeon about preventing the end of time be relevant again? and have its own separate thing. It seems odd.
Wasn't the Hour of Twilight where we took on
It's
Morozond?
when you're with no, that's End Times.
Is that End Times?
It's the one where you run around with Thrall. And you try and help him. It's not one I particularly remember doing. It's not one that, as far as I
I don't
know,
remember
is
it
in
very well.
rotation for Chromie Time. It just seemed odd for that dungeon to be separated.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I wonder how that's happened. Whether it's just a little bug moment, or whether it's a oops.
It could entirely be a
something in
bug.
there
It
early.
could be nothing.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking it would be like, oh, randomly dead mines. That means nothing because there's no connection at all. But it was because it was. It was the Hour of Twilight, and it's like, well, Hour of Twilight, that seems very relevant right now.
Yeah, Hour of Twilight, the End Times that the Black Empire wanted to bring on.
Yeah, so I don't know. It seemed relevant at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we'll finish up with one random person who we haven't discussed yet, and I don't know. There's absolutely no reason why this person would ever show up. Xalatath. Beyblade. Naifu.
Naifu, yeah.
So we released her in the end of, the middle of BFA from the knife, the priest knife. Then she went and took us on a little tour to Crucible of Storms, where she had a discussion with N'Zoth, and N'Zoth was like, "Yep, see ya, bye," and she disappeared. And she's long been rumoured to be the 5th Old God, or at least something powerful enough. Very speculatively, could she have anything to do with anything?
Wasn't she considered to be more powerful than the old gods?
It was she was very respected.
It's very shrouded.
It was very like, this is not just a demon or something. This was very much.
She was not just an other void servant type person.
So people thought, was she a void lord or like a lesser lord or something like that? Or
I mean, how the hell you get somebody like that squashed in a blade? I don't know, but my gut feeling is we may never know.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that she'll disappear from lore.
Yeah, I think she may just be one of those loose ends that unfortunately we never get a satisfying conclusion to.
I'd love if there was somebody working at Blizzy who went round with a little book and wrote, and all these little loose ends was like, I'm going to go through these one at a time, I'm going to tick them off.
Yeah.
Tidy these up.
I would like to see some kind of, I mean, if we go full Disco War, then it would be madness not to bring Xalatath back.
Yeah.
But I am not sure that I just have a feeling that we will not see them again.
Which probably means I will never get the payoff for still having the Eye of N'Zoth on my head.
I
you
think
and a lot of other people, I think.
I think we're going to see them again because I think it was such a flavorful little quest chain. It was a really interesting, flavorful little quest chain. I think they are a character that obviously clearly comes with a lot of power, a lot of background. There's stuff there. Like, why was she trapped in the blade? Where did she go? Is she a void lord? Or, like you say, it's interesting. And I do think the story's headed in that direction anyway. Whether it's like a multi-expansion story and it takes a while to get there, or whether we're going in that direction, we know that Terralion is set up it's been hinted at a lot. Terralion is set up to kind of take us down that light and shadow, kind of path. We know that we're discussing order disorder right now. We've just done life and death. It makes sense of the cosmology chart to then go light and shadow. So there's quite a few pointers that could take us in direction. And then obviously, if we did go in that direction, why would you not bring back an interesting character like that?
And where does Illyria come in with that as well? That's what just occurred to me with Terralion.
Yep.
where is she right now? First of all, but where can she? Where would she go with that?
I think canonically she's still in Stormwind with him. When they came
she's
back
around.
with the Void Elves, she
hiding out and not going near him because they can't physically touch each other because the void and the light can't stand.
except that one time when they had a kid somehow.
Sad.
But that was before they were void imbued and light imbued.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
I-
although
Pre
Arator's
that time.
like unofficial title is the son of, I'm sure he's called like the son of light and void
Light
or
and Shadow,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, he isn't actually, because he was born beforehand. He does need a new model though. I mean, he's still out there and on a hold, not wandering around.
There's
Like,
quite a few new models.
I know he comes back in Legion and he does make an appearance, but like
For those of you running Dragon Soul, you'll notice who has Dragon models updated and who doesn't.
Yep.
Yep.
I think one of them is due an update pretty soon, though. I'm just putting it out there.
It feels like a 9.2 patch. Yeah.
There's a very suspiciously large, well-guarded portal that you go nowhere near.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
somebody has a big seed as well that
all.
needs something doing with it, but
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with that. Why would you put a big tree?
Exactly.
There'll be lots of little things like that I hope we get payoff to. One small thing that I haven't mentioned that I do want some payoff with is, as a Death Knight, if you've done the Legion class hall, you've resurrected a red dragon, and there is a dragon that does not like you for it in BFA, and I would like there to be some kind of comment from Alexstrasza when I get to the Dragon Isles. Especially if I summon that mount.
Bit of story flavour there. Good point.
Oh yeah, so Illyria visited Oribos when Sylvanas was getting
did she? I must have missed that.
That's a good point, actually, because doesn't she have a little
stay alive and listen? Yeah, all three of them do, the sisters. Yeah.
Oh, I did not see that. I will have to search that out.
Have you finished all of that storyline now? Are you catching up?
So I've gone through most of Zereth Mortis, and I have seen Sylvanas in Oribos, but I did not stick around because I was so fed up with everything.
I think I think it stays there forever now until you actually.
Okay.
There's the sisters. There's one with Khadgar, and there's one with Tyrallion and the Owl. Not Tyrallion, Tyrande and the Owl.
They're all really good.
I saw Star Sister doing this the other day, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I've done that," but I haven't actually done that. Stay a while and listen. I think at that point, when I was getting through that bit for the game, I was literally just trying to get to Zereth Mortis to get the second legendary, and I was literally like, I was even saying, "I don't care about this lore. I don't care about this lore," which for me is really, I mean, for me to
in
say
a bad place.
I was not in a happy place with the game, and I just wanted to get through it.
The Tyrande one with the Owl, I keep saying Tyrallion, I don't know why. The Tyrande one and the Owl is the conclusion of the novel. So the novel ends and that cutscene picks up. And basically it's like at the end of the book, she turns around, she's in the moor, and she can hear someone in armour walk towards her.
Yes.
And it ends. And that cutscene, it's Anduin, and they have a discussion.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Are you going to stay here with me?" And he's like, "I'm just going to be around."
Working through my own shit.
Yeah,
which is where Gen and
Shaw. Yeah, so then there's a stay line we listen with Gen, and then there's one with Khadgar, which I can't remember what the Khadgar one is actually, but
there's a Khadgar one in Oribos.
Yeah, he comes to. This is why he comes as a.
Hey, two things I need to do.
Yeah, he's on the outer ring. He's on the outer ring of Oribos.
Okay.
I don't think it's him. I think you'll see some little icon that says like "Stay line, listen" on someone else, and then he'll fly in on as a raven and talk to you.
So Khadgar comes in as a raven.
Yes, he comes to the Shadowlands.
So it's Raven stick.
Yeah. He's got
that was
Atiash.
When he's
Medivh.
not putting away books with magic.
Is he?
he's
Well, he
turning
comes in
into
as a
raven.
bird. I can't remember which.
Did you guys right, just going back to Khadgar then for a minute. I obviously have missed quite a bit at the end of Shadowlands that I need to go and look at, and I need to go and find Reno in Borealis. But
1 week left. Get on it. Come on.
I but have you guys spoke Khadgar's obviously on the docks in Stormwind. Have you
Yes.
spoken to him as a Drakthir yet?
I have not even started
No.
my Drakthir yet. That's my thing
Right.
for today. I've literally created a
So-
character to get the name, and that's it.
So, bit of a spoiler. When you speak to Khadgar as a Drakthir, he mentions introducing you to Medivh at Karazhan, which I know
I've heard about that.
I think you've said that Medivh, when you do the Mythic Plus dungeon at normal level, it does say that Medivh is still around in Karazhan. I had not done that dungeon at level, so I did not know that. So it was news to me that
But so if
Medivh is
you
still
go there
floating
now
around in
as a
Karazhan.
Drakthir, you can see Medivh.
Well, No, it's just that Khadgar says you should come. I will, it'd be great to have you visit
Yeah, you should
Karazhan
come and meet the Guardian.
Oh, so,
yeah,
but
and
if you
talk
go
to
there, if you
Medivh.
actually physically go there as a Drakthir, nothing,
I don't know.
nothing
I
yet.
know.
Okay.
I don't know. But yeah, it's that made me go, huh? What? Because I hadn't done that mythic dungeon as a
Yeah.
like at level. I just farm it for mounts on easy peasy mode. And I had missed those bits
Mm.
at the end of Shadowlands, so I will need to. I suppose I will have to go back and get that bit.
Okay. So I
But
think
You'll
we'll,
I had
stairwell,
seen
listen.
our sister going through it just this week. She's obviously playing a bit of catch up, and I was a bit
well, I
like,
hope
"Oh,
to
I've
get
seen that."
Sassisser on soon, hopefully.
Yeah,
Um,
she's good.
need to get some more people lined up. But it's obviously very difficult with everyone just wants to play the game instead.
I know. It's going to
It's
take a
like-
few weeks getting anyone to do a podcast.
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
why I wanted to get this just
Little
done
bit
this weekend. I've got next weekend where I'm seeing some people from various different streams, seeing those guys, and then it's launch week. After that, it's gonna be so hard to get people to spare an hour or two on the podcast, but we'll try. We'll do what we can. Before we go, I think we should all just. Do we want to reveal what our Drakthir are called?
Sure.
So mine is the very uninterestingly named Drakian.
I like it.
I don't know. I couldn't think of anything better at the time.
I just went for Capthir because I'm going to put it in a delete cupboard. So,
Oh my god.
to have cap in it, it's got Thea on the end. It works for me. Cap Draken was another one. We had quite a few suggestions in chat at the time, actually. But yeah, I just went for Capthir. I was like, keep it simple. That's what I said I'd do. Just go in and delete cupboard.
I did log onto a very small realm and try and get Donkey, but I couldn't get it.
Mine
Love
is
it.
called Dragon D's Nuts. No, it's not.
So many of those.
So many of
No.
those. Oh.
No, it's not. It's Debbie Straza because
Yeah.
why would I not be as close to Alex as I possibly could? And it was I'd grabbed the name a long time ago, and then went to remake a character to save the name and was upset that I didn't have the right spelling of it, and then scrolled up and went, oh, it's because I've already got it.
I need to go and try and get Nick Tharian.
Yeah, Nick Tharian
Nick
would be
Tharian's
good.
good.
Yeah.
But you can't have two,
So,
and
yeah,
then have to
so-
delete and do all my customization again.
Yep.
You should be able to export your
Yeah, that's
customization
fun.
so you can re-import it.
Yeah, we
That-
should be able to
yeah,
export all
that's
of your
true.
buttons as well, rather than. I mean, I know you can do the layout, but I'm like, I want to be able to save all my buttons where they are, so that when I play another hunter, I can just stick them all back in.
That's called LVY, but we'll come into that another
I
day.
know, I know. I hate that about it. Like,
Can you not do that when you save a profile on the default UI?
Possibly. I don't think so though. If you can,
You can save profiles, and I
Yeah.
think once you, I don't know, I think you can keep them, but I'm not sure.
Gonna go and fiddle.
Right then, we'll leave it here for today. Thank you very much for coming on for this extra long session. I'll try and upload this to YouTube and Spotify this week. It might get chopped into sections just because of how big it is, but we'll see how it goes. Do you want to sort of give a shout out to yourselves so people know where to find you?
Sure thing. Demi, you go first.
All right, then, babes. I'll go first.
babes. Go, babes.
So you can find me at Demeternoth, which is Demeternoth, on the Twitters, on the Twitch, on the YouTubes, on some spicy stuff sometimes if you want to have a look at that as well. I have got TikTok and Instagram, and I have just in the last few hours set up Tumblr so that if the firestorm that is happening on my beloved Twitter goes down, then you can find me over there. But everything is at Demeternoth or Demeter Does, which is Demeternoth or Demeterdoes. And just look for me. It's very unlikely that there is another Demeternoth, and I'm quite easy to spot. My face is quite recognizable, so if it's not me, you'll know very soon.
You're gonna love this, but Twitch has put an ad break in.
Oh, good old
Just
Twitch.
halfway through that, it's like, God, Twitch, you do not need to tell me to get a Philips razor right now. It is not the moment. So
All I can say is subscribe, and I'll give you no ads.
yeah, it's exactly
Also, I
that.
stream so infrequently, you'll get no value out of it. So sub to these guys instead.
So anyway, so I'm the TheKapFantastic, and I am the TheKapFantastic on Twitter, on Insta, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Tumblr, and I don't think I regularly use anything else enough to really shout about it here. So that is me. You can find me all over the internet. I stream Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 7 p.m. UK time through to about 10 o'clock, and sometimes do bonus streams over the end that run to about 9 hours if I'm feeling up to it. So check us out and have a wicked rest of your weekend, whatever you're up to. Thanks for having me on the show, Nick.
Yeah, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.